John Hoover,
Hey,
welcome,
bud.
dude.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked to have you here. Thank you for being here.
Never pass an opportunity to hang out.
Never pass an opportunity. We were talking earlier, we're like, I can see how this can go. We can talk. So you can talk and I can talk. We're going to have a good time today.
Yeah, watch out.
Yeah.
We're going to order lunch.
Yes. Well, and also we just had a really cool opportunity to do some stuff together just over the weekend. You don't live in town full time anymore. You're spending a lot of time here. So thank you for taking time away from the family, which I know are down in Oceanside, which we'll talk about. But we did something before we jump in. We'll paint a bit of a picture who's in the room. We were together on Saturday.
Yep.
For a full day.
All day.
And then you guys went to do some other stuff. What did we do on, we'll paint the picture. What did we do on Saturday? Why were you there with your crew? And we'll go from there. How's that?
Yeah, so Bended Go, right?
The Bended Go.
Ben Carlson, Memorial Paddle, fundraiser for the foundation. And last year we got involved, a bunch of the water safety guys and I, to just make sure that everything's really dialed in on the safety perspective and kind of add to the team that you guys already had. So we were invited back. Apparently we weren't terrible, and pretty special time. It's not a race, so it's a prone paddle across the channel from Avalon to Newport. And different than everything else, this is like an experience. Everyone's together, everyone's talking, everyone's just like thriving on each other's energy. And yeah, just special for us to be able to be a part of that, from the safety side. And anytime you get to cross that channel, it's an amazing time. So
Rad.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you nailed it, exactly what we did and the power of that channel. So what's really cool, so you said your crew, but the BWRAG, Big Wave Risk Assessment Group, we brought you guys in last year for our first, so in the 9.0, this was the 10th year, to really enhance and bolster our safety, and it was game-changing. And since that time, and even since our paddle a couple days ago, the number of comments I've gotten from paddlers, not just about the whole event, but the safety aspect, the team energy, and just having you guys buzzing around. And I think a lot of them have kind of started. Not everybody in that group would have known who you guys are, but a lot of people have done the homework. Who are those guys on the watercraft? What's their role? And they start looking like, oh, like we had some of the best of the best of the best in the water, navigating the whole thing with us. So just a huge props and praise for what you guys do. It's been world class for us to have you engage with us and really, again, bolstering our safety protocols, especially when we had 130 paddlers paddling for 8 hours across 30 miles, and it went off without a hitch. So thank you for your guys' role in that. It was rad.
wow, we're stoked.
So fun.
Conditions were all time. It was epic.
Downwind from Avalon to Newport. It's unheard of.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Doesn't happen.
It was such a great time. Thank you. We'll talk more about it. And then what's fun for you guys is we get to the beach after you guys are in the saddle on the rescue watercraft for like 8+ hours. Then you buzz back to the dock, go shower off, get a beer, and then where'd you go from there?
Well, you say buzz back to the dock. It was a long,
Yeah,
slow
5
roll
miles
to
an
the
hour.
back bay.
It's a long haul for sure.
Yeah, timing coincided really well. Fortunately, we're all in Newport at the time, and they had the, resurgence of the Big Wave Awards. Bill Sharp, brought that back to the Lido Theater in Newport. And so, yeah, we went to the awards that night down in Newport. And, yeah, it was a long day. Been up since, 4 whatever with you guys and on the water all day. But it was great. It was an amazing time.
Well, I'm imagining because you work with groups like us, which is fairly pedestrian in the world of what you do, you guys spend most of your time in big water. That was the genesis of BWRAG. We'll talk a lot about the organization. So you knew a lot of the people there,
yeah,
right?
it was special. As we were saying beforehand, back in the Billabong and the XXL Awards, and that was a wonderful party and circus
But
all of its own.
It was a circus, right? It was huge.
This was special. The Lido Theater, old theater, small, definitely have an intimate feel. And it was just that. It was literally friends from Portugal and France and Hawaii and different crews that there weren't a lot of the extras around. So it was just the people that you wanted to see, right? Whether they're photographers or surfers or safety or whatever. So yeah, it was special. It was really nice, enjoyable night. Got to see people and connect and have conversation. And, yeah, it was a really nice way to wrap up the day.
Super cool. And then just more context. Again, we're going to get into actually who you are and all that, but those awards celebrated the biggest waves ridden of the year, the heaviest stuff, which is, again, a big part of what you guys do every day or on those days. But also, there was a big award. So the 100-foot wave, which is on HBO, produced by Bill Sharp, or directed by Bill, just won an Emmy
Yeah, yeah, and it was really cool. You know, not everybody that was involved, right, is a huge crew, right, that was producing that whole thing. And so obviously not everyone could go to the awards, you know, at the Emmys. So he actually was, I think he acquired what they call a stand-in Emmy, and he was actually able to present real Emmy trophies to some of the like, cinematographers, I can't talk this morning, cinematographers and guys that weren't able to go to those awards. So it was cool that they were recognized in front of their like real peers, right, from the surf industry
Yeah.
and that side, and be, acknowledged and get an Emmy to take home with them. So it was pretty awesome. We were stoked.
And I think it was the episode about the Cortez Bank, the second strategic strike. I can't talk either.
Yeah.
Strategic strike to Cortez Banks. Unbelievable. But you guys worked that too, right? Weren't you out there on that when they filmed that day and all that? I mean,
Yeah. That was my last big mission in California before I moved full time over to Hawaii. So yeah, it was a huge production. Definitely the biggest team that we've ever brought out there. Scored incredible conditions, and yeah, it was amazing to see. You know, I mean, you see it in person, and I think film and photog, all that stuff, like never really does it justice. But that documentary, I was like, they actually kind of did a pretty good job, like showing what we saw that day. So it was amazing.
Surf is often butchered on film, but this was as like authentic and real and incredible. And when HBO backs it, so a lot of people, if you're flying to Hawaii on Hawaiian Airlines, you can watch 100-foot wave on their on-flight entertainment. But if you haven't watched it, it's HBO. It's called 100-foot wave. There's two seasons, and I think it was like episode 8 or something, but really highlights this one. And so if you want to, like, we'll talk a lot more, but if you want to kind of get an idea of what these guys do, I kind of think of you guys as oftentimes in the shadows behind all the scenes on all the big heavy water things going on out in the world. And sometimes you have to get you're in front of it, right? Depending on conditions, depending on what's going on. But the fact that you were on that, like, and that's for a surf turkey like me that has no interest in riding big waves, to be able to go see and be a part of it. And again, we'll talk more deeply about some of your personal experiences out at Cortez and elsewhere. I just can't imagine. Like, I get chicken skin thinking about what that must, like, I don't know if I want to even be on the boat. Like, it is so friggin' gnarly, but just incredible. And like, I'm a total surf turkey. I watch all the films and all the big wave stuff. I could never do it. Never, ever, ever, ever. But I really appreciate people that can. But you can't do a lot of that stuff to the level that's being done today without what BWRAG and people like you are providing. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about.
Well, you should come next time. We'll drag you out.
I wouldn't say no if I got an invite. I'll tell you that much. We'll do an on-site pod interview or something, which would be incredible. So thank you for kind of painting a picture. But for everybody else, a little intro to Hoover, because there's a lot. So it's interesting. I'm always curious, and a lot of what we'll talk about today is like what you're doing today, but like I'm always super curious how you got there. Like, what was the flow that got you from growing up in Oceanside, a little foreshadowing, to now you're living in Hawaii, obviously working around the world, doing stuff, instructing at the level that you are. So just a little bit of backstory, and then we'll talk about that path. This might embarrass you because there's a lot of, like, when you look, if you were to look this guy up, you'll hear or see just how much stuff. And I always think of it this way, like, if you're going to put your ass in harm's way in the water, these are the guys that you want. But really, if you're going to put yourself in harm's way doing anything, this is the type of skill set you want on your team. Like, and you'll hear a lot about it. And I've been able to go through the BWRAG course last year, and you like, just the way you guys look at the world and think of the world, and you look at your background, and you're like, okay, I can start to see all these pieces of what you've done, which I'll share, like seems like it's led you to this place, like a perfect culmination of all of your skill and interest, like have dropped you in with some of the best and doing some pretty rad shit. So really cool. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like the way it spells. So John is a respected water safety risk management specialist, big wave surfing, offshore racing like transpac sailing, which is rad, and then distance paddling. We talked about some of it. As an instructor for ocean risk management, small boat and rescue watercraft, working with special ops, 20 years search and rescue down at Oceanside Harbor Patrol. Mm-hmm. That was the division. You've been with BWRAG for over 10 years. BWRAG master instructor, and you're on the board of directors.
Whatever that means.
Well, I know what that means. And everybody else will know in a little bit when we talk about it. And some of your background that allowed you or afforded you the ability to do it EMT, team leader in underwater search and recovery, risk management planner, water rescue specialist, master scuba diver, charter captain, offshore sailing chief medical officer, and elite safety special ops instructor. So working with our military top guns, best of the best. Dude, not bad for a kid from Oceanside.
Not
well
bad.
done.
Not bad.
Pretty
right?
impressive. And what I also like, and we'll talk more about it too, is you and I were talking offline because of my ability, like I got to spend time, like we all shared a house on the island. Like
Yep.
the different personalities when you're off is super interesting, like totally different. But when you guys are on, like it all comes to play. And just really interesting to see. And I'm actually going to ask you some questions about it because I'm really curious. It's really neat though.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nail it, right? Like you taking the course and getting to know some of the guys that we work together. It's really a mindset thing more than anything, right? Like all those titles and whatever words slammed together. Like, what does that even mean? I'm listening to you say it, and I'm like,
Who is that guy?
What does that even mean? Like, what master, whatever, this, that, and the other. But it really comes down to, right, like mindset and experience and where you're applying yourself in that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's
Those are skill sets all combined to allow you to do the things that you do at a level that you do it, right?
Sure.
Those, again, I would say if you're a doctor or anything, you have all those, you probably don't have them, but a lot of people have a lot of different acronyms or letters past their name.
insurance words, right?
Right, exactly right. It's that type. You've got your PhD in extreme safety measures.
Sure, yeah.
And then just extrapolating what you guys do when it's on. We were talking offline, so you're here with the family. You guys are doing courses. We'll talk about BWRAG. And you get to kind of, it's either on or off, right? A lot of us go to work 9 to 5 every day, whether it's on or it's off. Like you guys are, it sounds like you get an opportunity to be off because you said you brought the family out here because you're doing stuff nonstop for like 6 weeks. So really interesting, really, really interesting. But let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Oceanside. John Hoover. What's the family? Was it a very military town, especially 30, 40 years ago? Was that, what's the genesis of your family?
Well, let me give, since we're doing the Newport thing, let me give my little Newport claim.
okay.
And I was actually born at Hogue.
Oh, really?
Never lived in Newport, but
2 miles from here. Got it.
yeah, grew up in Oceanside. Dad was a teacher. Mom worked in some like outside sales for a little while, but I am the oldest of 3 boys. So, in between having kids, she was home a lot of the time, back to work at other times. So, yeah, kind of just a not low income, but very middle ground, like family growing up. Didn't have a lot. Dad's from Oregon, so not an aquatic person. Mom grew up in Huntington Beach, more on the cheerleader side, so not really ultra aquatic. So I wasn't raised in any of that other than, you go to the beach when you're in Southern California, right? So body surfing and boogie boarding, right? And my dad coached cross country at one point in Dana Hills, and a good buddy of his, Tim Butler, taught me to surf at 12 years old, like literally ripped the boogie board out of my hands, left me on a longboard at Sano and was like, no, you need to try this. And then, the light bulb moment we all have, right? You get hooked instantly. And I'd say that kind of started the whole trajectory. Yeah.
So did you get super in surfing after that? That was it?
Yeah. I mean, my poor dad, right? Oldest, his firstborn son, like my dad's like baseball, football, soccer, like and I could not care less about playing a sport with a ball. And so, totally hooked, loved it. Surf club, middle school, high school, surf PE, all those things. Tried to go to college for a minute. It wasn't really my jam. Spent all my time in Santa Barbara, learning to paddle outrigger, learning to sail, mountain biking, ceramics, underwater basket weaving, anything but taking real classes.
So you went up there to hypothetically go to school, but ended up finding all the other cool stuff instead?
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, man, for $30,000 a year, I think I could do a lot of fun things, actually for less than that, right? So that wasn't really my path. So came back to Oceanside, 19 years old, like regrouping. What am I going to do with my life, right? Tried to go into the Coast Guard at one point, and that didn't end up working out. Beautiful, like mixed blessing in that. And I remember sailing on a girlfriend's stepdad's boat in San Diego Harbor and seeing the Harbor Patrol guys. And I'm at the time driving tow trucks for a living, stealing cars, doing repos and like PPIs and that kind of thing. And thinking I should do that, right? So that was kind of my, like, I've told that story before, but that was kind of my nexus. I was like, okay, I think I can do what those guys are doing. I love being on the water. They're getting paid to be on the water. I work well in high stress situations. I imagine that's what these first responders are dealing with daily. And I found my way into it.
So sailing, you said you found sailing and and outrigger up in Santa Barbara. So
Yeah.
like right out of high school, you're like, oh, other different water things other than just surf.
Yeah.
And you brought that back and you started, did you keep doing that when you came back down?
Yeah. So I learned with, I think it's Kanaya, that is the club that's up there in Santa Barbara. And came back down to Oceanside. So I was paddling. I did some team stuff, but I've predominantly been an OC1 guy. My schedule doesn't really work out to do team stuff very well.
Got it. And so you mentioned tow truck and doing repo and stuff. Was that just like a stopgap, or you're like trying to figure out something to do? Or
Yeah, I mean, I was
pay the bills.
I was a little headstrong. I moved out at 17, and I didn't let the door hit me on the way out, and that kind of thing. You got to make money. You got to figure it out, right? So, friend of a friend did that, made good money at the time. He's like, yeah, I could teach you how to do that. It was real exciting, and got to.
So the tow truck side sounds like one thing, but and then you talk about like come under pressure. So you're doing repos and you said stealing cars legally.
Yeah.
You're stealing them back. I think most of us like have seen that on TV programs, but like not actually done it at, you said 19?
Yeah, 19. So you learn to talk really, really quick, right? So a lot of the guys in those industries, like whatever, they have CCWs or maybe they're not legit.
Is that
whatever.
concealed carry?
Things to protect themselves, because I've had people chasing with baseball bats, crossbows to my neck. I mean, all kinds of stuff because you're stealing the car back.
How long did you do that for?
About a year and a half, maybe. Not very long.
But action packed, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, it was wild.
Heavy.
It was what? Middle of the night, 2 a.m. You're driving up into every neighborhood.
Okay, so did you like it?
It was fun.
Okay.
It was a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like during that Gone in 60 Seconds era, and like I wasn't 60 seconds. Mine was like 90 seconds. I could have any car gone in about a minute and a half. It was wild. It was absolutely like you're driving into a neighborhood that you probably didn't want to be walking around in at 2 a.m. and you're going to steal some guy's car. Yeah, it was fun. It was exciting.
Okay, so what does that say about Hoover? I mean, what does that say about you? The fact that you at 19, because with, dad from Oregon, mom's like, he's a teacher. It wasn't like you grew up on the streets.
Yeah, it's not in our family.
So what was it that like, it was opportunity. Somebody said, hey, we have this opportunity, but like, you're like, I like this.
Yeah, it was opportunity to make money, but I think and this will definitely tie in later, but learning a new skill, learning it well, like, and having a good preparation. And I definitely had somebody that mentored and guided me in that in the beginning. It was that like calculated risk, right? So you're getting the adrenaline junkie part, but also it's not just like, hey, I'm going to go steal a car and figure it out as we go. No, it was like, there was the preparation side of it, which is obviously like very deep in me. So like knowing exactly like, okay, I have a little background on this. I know the footwork, what I'm going to do. And we're going to make this like happen really quickly, but we're going to be mostly safe, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
calculated risk.
Yeah,
I think that's a big part of your life. Calculated and managing or mitigating it. Right?
Yeah,
that is your
absolutely.
life.
Yeah.
And helping other people do it, teaching people to do it, or doing it for them.
Right. And I say it all the time. It's not risk avoidance, right? Like so much of our culture, and especially in the first responder world that I've seen, towards the tail of my career was risk avoidance. Oh, I don't know. That's too risky. I don't think we're going to do it. So it's not risk avoidance. It's risk management. Like how can we still accomplish this goal, but safer, right? So trying to make sure that we're not just saying like, nope, we're not quitting surfing. We're not quitting going in the ocean or whatever the case may be, right? We're still going to do it, but let's just do it safer, right? Like let's manage that risk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's what you do. And I mean, I'm very fortunate, between the Ben Carlson Foundation and the Open Water folks. I had Danny Nichols here and like for podcast number 1.
Yeah.
And we had a fire truck go by and he goes, here's the difference. If there's a firefighter, they're going towards the fire. The rest of us are going that way.
Exactly.
So I spend a lot of time with people like you, first responders, lifeguards, fire, that are going towards it while most of us are going the opposite direction. So we appreciate people like you that are willing to go towards it.
Yeah, we get excited.
Yeah, well, right? Well, I mean, that's what I'm trying, like, I saw your eyes a little bit when you're like, yeah, I'm 19, it's 2 a.m. and I'm going into town or a zone I don't want to be in.
Yeah.
Let's go. I'm going to go get that
game
fucking car. Whatever it is. I can appreciate it. Well, I think it does kind of start to connect the dots. But did you identify that in you then? Like, ooh, I kind of like this. What can I do with it? Or did you just happen to be doing that and you go sailing with your girlfriend and you see these guys on a harbor patrol boat? What was it about? I mean, you had said you had thought about or considered Coast Guard. Mm-hmm. So you were thinking about something in the service side already?
Yeah, I've always been a bit of a talker, and I feel like I could probably be a pretty good salesman, but I don't like it. I don't like selling things to people that may or may not need that thing. So I knew I wasn't really geared, at least from a longevity standpoint, to do a lot of the traditional role jobs that a lot of my friends were looking at, and kind of what college gears a lot of people towards. So I was like, man, what am I going to do? And growing up in a military town, I wasn't really inclined to go into the military. Growing up at the beaches there, like you see all the young, not the officers, you see the young military down there. I was like, I don't know, it's just not really what I'm interested in doing. Might have a little bit of an authority thing that I, wasn't real psyched on. So I was like, military's not really for me. Coast Guard though, it's like pseudo military, you know, like definitely, the pre 9/11 was, Department of Transportation. So it was separate enough, and it was aquatic. So I'm like, shoot, I mean, how bad could it be? You're going to be on the water no matter where you are. Like, let's look into that. And it's government, right? So, my dad being a teacher, like steady job, you have a paycheck, like once you're vested, you're not going anywhere. I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense for me. So yeah, that was the appeal, right? It was like, let's find something that can be a real career, that can provide for a family that I hope to have one day, right? And do something that hopefully I don't hate completely.
Yeah. Well, and so how did the Harbor Patrol come about?
So San Diego County at the time, 3 of the 4 agencies that had boats, rescue boats, were police agencies. Had no desire to be a police officer. That was never me growing up, like, oh, I'm going to be a policeman when I'm big. But hey, 3 of the 4 are police. I guess that's something I probably have to look at. The 4th was San Diego Lifeguards, but at 19, going on 20 years old, I'm like, you're going to have to put in 10 years before you even think about seeing a boat. I'm going to be 30s. I'm like, I don't think I'm ready to be, jump into a seasonal gig to earn that in 10 years.
But you knew you were going after a boat.
Yeah, I was going after a boat, 100%.
Got
right.
it.
So I'm looking all up and down the Southern California coastline. Shoot, I even looked at like Gulf Coast stuff in Texas. I looked at Florida. I'll go anywhere, get my foot in the door, get some experience. Ultimately, would love to be back home, Southern California. And yeah, I was just really fortunate. Those three agencies were police. I guess I need to go be a policeman. One of my good friends growing up ended up being a police officer with Oceanside, like a patrol cop, Danny Besnett. And so we ended up going to the police academy together. And I wasn't even old enough to apply it because I was 20. He was a year ahead of me. So I put myself through. I paid to go to the academy on my own.
Wow.
And took 6.5 months off for that. So you couldn't work during that time because it's full time. And was fortunate enough to get picked up by the San Diego Port Police right out of the academy at 21.
So you knew, or I guess you knew that even though you didn't want to be a cop, you needed to go down that path to potentially end up with a Harbor Patrol role or Harbor Police or whatever.
Exactly. How do I get what I want? This is the avenue, so I'm going to do that.
Okay.
It ended up being really fun. There was a lot of really fun aspects of police work that I enjoyed, but my heart's always been on the water. And I was fortunate to spend my whole career on the water during that time.
Rad that you figured that out that early.
Crazy. And it blows my mind every time I think back or talk about it. I had like a very distinct direction, what I wanted to do. I knew exactly what I wanted, how I was going to get there. The Coast Guard was one avenue, right? If I went in, did 4-year stint, then I could come out, have experience, and then go to the same avenue. But didn't work out, fine. Found another way to get to it by putting myself through as an open enrollee. And then ultimately acquiring that position at 21, I was blown away. Here's your badge. Here's the keys to your police car. Here's your gun. Here's the keys to your police boat. Like, you just gave that to a 21-year-old kid. Like, it blew my mind. I can't even believe that they would hire me at that age. But it was amazing. Incredible life to be in that young and to have it be that formative. It's kind of like lifeguarding, right? When I get hired at 16 years old, you could have a job at Pete's Coffee, right? Sweeping straws off the floor or whatever. You could have a job at In-N-Out, sweeping French fries, or no risk, no threat of life. But at 16, kids go in and become lifeguards, and they're responsible for life and death. They're responsible for telling adults, hey, you cannot swim here or do that, right? Patching people up. Similar, right? 21, it was like, man, I'm responsible. I'm in charge. I have to tell you what to do. Crazy.
Let me ask you this. Were you an on-off switch? Were you mature enough at that time 24/7, or were you able just to turn it on when you needed to during your workday? Because at 21, nobody's giving me keys to a car or a gun for me.
Sure.
I just didn't have the maturity to do it. Did you have the maturity, or did you have the ability to turn it on and off the way you needed to?
I think that they must have seen some maturity in there somewhere. That's why they offered me a position. I definitely made plenty of mistakes, learned hard ways, but I was incredibly blessed. There were a lot of older senior guys that were like in the twilight of their career that invested in me. And they taught me things from boat operations to how you should handle your finances, to, I mean, all the things that really led to so much of the success that I had in my career, in my life, was just timing, right? Like I was around people that were willing, you know, the tail end of any career, burnout and all that kind of stuff. These guys were still willing to invest in this 21-year-old kid, John Hoover, walking through the door, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like, wow, what are we going to do today? You know, and they took the time to share with me, right, and invest in me. And yeah, it was huge.
That's rad.
Huge. So lucky.
I also think that those same people wouldn't have spent any time with you if they didn't like you.
Fair enough.
I'm pretty confident. Like, right? People want to help people they want to help. They're not going to help. It wasn't some obligation that they did all the extra stuff to help you figure out how to save your money and do this and that. Like, there was something about you that they liked. Like, you're probably super fired up, you knew what you wanted to do. You were there. And these guys were like, we like this kid. Let's help him. Like, back.
And I like to ask questions too, right? I mean, I think most people like to talk about themselves a little bit. So if you ask a question of somebody, like they're generally more apt to give you the answer than if you're just standing next to them. They're not going to be like, hey, let me tell you all about myself, right?
Yeah, that's why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. So
rad. So 20 years.
Yeah, so I did a year and a half down there.
The port police.
Yeah, the port police, which was
that
cool.
Was that in San Diego Harbor?
Yeah, so they in addition to the seaport, they also do the airport and then have like a small strip of land that surrounds that zone. So you could be, you know, patrol car function like a normal street cop. You could be kind of airport police. And then you also got on the boats, which a lot of, you know, if you got on with San Diego PD, they have a boat unit in Mission Bay, you'd probably have to put in 3, 5, 7, however many years before you get on a boating unit. So the port police was actually pretty ideal because I got on a boat right away. Wow. Immediately out from getting hired, they're like, all right, cool, we're putting you through boat school, fire school, all this stuff that's applicable. And then once a week, you rotate around, right? You work 3-4 days a week. So one day maybe on the boat, one day maybe in the airport, you know, so you got that experience right off the bat, which was super cool.
Well, it seems like you're getting more of an education than any, like, by design or by luck, that you're able to get they're putting you through fire, through boat, through cars, through like all of this stuff, where most roles that would be like, I know that as a police officer, you're going through, like, before you get on a motorcycle, you're years in. Sure. Right?
Exactly.
So the fact that did you know that going in, that that's where you could get that kind of training, or did you just luck into that, that specific role?
Yeah, if I was to rate like in order at that time, like 3 of the 4, okay, where do I want to go? Ideally, I wanted to go to Oceanside. That's full time on the boat. It's my hometown. Number 2, port police. You're on the boat right away. You're going to do these other things. You're going to get some cool exposure. Definitely a bigger department, a bigger area that you're working. So it was definitely high up there. I knew about it because you have to do your research, you know, even just for your interviews, right, to know about the agency. But yeah, I mean, like anybody would say, right? Like, is it luck? Is it good fortune? Is it hard work? Like, it's where those stars all align, right? Like, obviously, I put in the work. I worked hard. I did my homework, put in the preparation. But yeah, to some degree, I was just blessed, right? That they saw something in me and were willing to hire. So stoked. But meanwhile, laying the groundwork, right? Get hired with the port, going up to Oceanside, which was
the goal was still get
hometown.
Okay.
Hometown, right? I mean, that town raised me. That town, like, I owe so much to Oceanside in so many different aspects, right? From street smarts and just being aware of what's around you, because if you leave your bike for 1.5 seconds not locked up, it's gone, right? Or the localism in the lineup. Like, I've traveled all over the world surfing, had 0 problems anywhere other than one we talked about the other day. I think came from Oceanside, right? Like, knowing how to, like, even just the way to walk down the beach, the way to enter the water, the way to sit on the shoulder, like, keep your mouth shut and, like, earn a position in a lineup, like, that came from Oceanside, right? So, like, all these things really gave me so much growing up there. So then for me to be able to pay back and serve that community, that was the goal, 100%. And so, yeah, I just went up and I, like, introduced myself. Hey, I got hired with the Port of San Diego. I'm from here. I want to work here. There's only 10 positions, so it could be a decade before there's any turnover, but I want my name to be at the forefront of your mind when that comes up. And amazingly enough, a position did come up pretty quick. So after a year and a half in San Diego, I was able to come to Oceanside and spend the rest of my career up there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was killer. So amazing to be able to come to work every day. Like, the last 15 years working up there, I lived 2 miles door to door from my house to the office. I didn't even drive a car. I ran to work. My lazy days, I rode a single speed, like rusted out beach cruiser to work. And every day, all day long, I'm serving the people that I grew up with, the people that I am friends with at the yacht club, or people that I paddle with at the canoe club, or whatever, right? So
You were
it's
like the mayor.
kind of an unofficial
For
mayor,
sure,
right?
for
Yeah,
sure.
my wife would definitely say that. You couldn't go get a cheeseburger or go eat groceries without getting stopped by like 4 people. But
So cool.
I'm sure you know that story
Well, it's a small town. If you grow up there and then you're in business there or
Yeah.
in service there, even more so.
Right.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, the town of Oceanside's like 200,000, give or take. Most of that's like military and other like peripheral stuff, but the town within that is a very small town.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It was really special.
Rad. My one funny story about Oceanside, just because you'll appreciate it. Growing up surfing here, I think I was probably 15. I was on the surf team. We had a surf contest down there. We took the train down. There was a couple chaperones. We were super obnoxious. That's why they would never give me a gun or police car keys. We got chased by a bunch of military guys. They were probably, 18 to 25. We were 15 and 6. Scariest thing ever. Like,
Yeah.
truly chased. Like they wanted to kill us.
Yeah.
So I learned, we would always go down and surf Oceanside. And when I went to school in San Diego, we'd always come up and surf Oceanside. But I always had a respect for it because, as you said, like there's a degree of local. It's very different than growing up in Newport. I'll just leave it that way.
It's a little gritty.
Yeah.
We would always say where the debris meets the sea was kind of a takeoff of the Del Mar racetrack slogan. So.
That's very funny. So, okay. So more on the more serious note, you're in service for 20 years at that point, or before you retired from Oceanside. Can you talk about the experience of being first responder on the water? You're doing some heavy stuff. Talk about your career to whatever degree. Like it sounds like you shared that it was awesome because you were close to home. You were kind of the, unofficial mayor. You knew everyone. You could serve your community, but you also deal with heavy stuff on a regular basis. Yeah. It's the conversation with any first responder. How was it for you, maybe on the positive and the negative?
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely touched on the positive, right? Like, you hear the sirens. I mean, we all perk up whether you're working or retired. You're like, oh, what do they got? I want to go. Like, you're kind of, that adrenaline, like, has a draw, right? So it's exciting. It's not, I don't know if, it's definitely innate in most of us. I think it can be built into some, but some people just aren't cut out for it, right?
Do you think it's a natural trait for a lot of people in that world, that it's just you're wired that way?
Yeah, I think some people are just prone to look out for others and have maybe a heightened sense of awareness. Obviously, that was then extrapolated and trained more, deeply into us. But yeah, I think a lot of the people that get involved in that, the reason they're drawn to it in the first place is they're just that type of person. You do see people that you're like, I don't know, and then they train into it and they can get it. But yeah, obviously there's those that don't. So, so from that aspect, the point being is it's a lot of fun, right? Like you get to go and see some pretty wild stuff. But I'd be lying if I didn't touch on the other side. Yeah, it wrecks you. I mean, mentally, physically, it destroys a lot of people. And unfortunately, I've seen that. I had a friend I used to teach with up in LA that took his own life, right? I mean, it wreaked havoc in his personal life, and then he ended up in that position where there was no other choice in his mind, apparently. And it's hard. I mean, I retired on PTSD,
Did you
full
really?
disclosure. So, what does that mean? I mean, that's a whole nother discussion itself. But yeah, it definitely affects you tremendously. You see on a daily basis the worst day of someone's life, and then 30 minutes later you go to the worst day of somebody else's life, potentially, right? I mean, not every day is full of heavy, but like can be, right? And I had a good friend of mine he was in the military, he's a corpsman, got out, came back, did the fire thing for about 10 years. And he was actually really pivotal for me in kind of wrapping my head around what is this PTSD? What is all this stuff that, the first responder guys, what we're dealing with? And he's like, when I was in the military, I might get deployed a couple times in a 20-year career, and of those times, like how much of that time was actually like in the mix or, at a base that's staged off of that, right? But then when I come home, and I'm home for a couple of years or whatever, the majority of their career, they're home and they're training, doesn't take away from it. But he said, when I got into fire and it was every day, I didn't know that I was going to see that. And then you get off work, right? Your on-off switch that you're asking about. How do you, do you turn it off? Are you able to turn it off? You try to, right? Because you want to be a good human, like where you started in the beginning before you got into any of that stuff. So you try to turn it off so that you can interact with your family, with your friends, and be a real person. But you're never turning it off because like that car accident right now, I'd be out the front door.
Back to what I said. I'd be going that way. You'd be going that way.
Right. And so it's never off, right? A lot of lifeguards, to go back to the lifeguards, right? Like the beach gets ruined for them if you turn into a career lifeguard. They can't go to the beach because they can't relax, right? For me, the biggest, like a pool party, I have 3 little kids. A pool party is the worst place in the world for me. Like everyone wants, oh, hey, like I'm trying to get to know you.
You're
oh,
not
hey,
taking
you
your eyes off the water, are you?
And I'm like, and it's not even so much my kids, it's their kids, right? So that it absolutely absorbs your whole life and how you're able to process, how you're able to have healthy outlets. Like all those things are obviously factors, and there's definitely ways that people can do it and come out on the other side of it. But yeah, it's gnarly, right? Like you have all this fun and then you leave. Like why do the guys in the military like that have the worst like PTSD? They just want to go back because that's what they know. That's how they know how to function. They've been trained. They've worked in it. Like that is a safe space for us, which is counterintuitive, right? Like that's safety, and yet it's the most dangerous spots potentially, right? So yeah, it's a weird dynamic. But
I totally get it. And again, because of the people that I spend my time with, that's what open water, Danny Nichols, Whitney, Kyle Kelly, that's their whole mission is to help people that have that PTSD from their service, first responders, military. And they go, and Morgan Hostery, all these people, they're just badasses. All they're trying to do is help the people that help us. Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah. Because I hear these stories all the time, and I harken back to, I grew up playing surfing and water polo and naturally into lifeguarding.
Sure.
And Newport used to have a cadet program, and that's what I did. So it was like a paid for between junior guards and lifeguarding. And I did it for a year, and at the end of the summer, they had me actually guarding. And I didn't go back the next year to try out because I realized, you just said it, from that point on, I went from being a surfer and loved the beach, was there all the time. Very quickly, I couldn't turn off. Yeah. Every time I was there, I was always just scanning, watching the water, always. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't want to turn it into a job and no longer like going to the beach. Yeah. And I realized it. For a lot of years, I kind of regretted it. I should have gone back. But at the time, I realized I just didn't like it anymore very quickly. And I've realized over the years that if you take a passion, turn it into a job, it becomes a job, and you lose some of the passion for it. So it's interesting, but you guys have done this when it goes on, it's just compounding or stack, like years and years and years and years of that impact. And so I didn't realize that's why you retired because of that. And
like I say, I mean, there's wisdom in that conversation, right? Is like people that are successful in navigating that, right, can pour into other people and kind of shepherd those people or, mentor those people into a direction where you can learn to function your way through it, right? Whether that be through, again, sport or something like that, whether that be promoting and doing something different in that career, whether that be investing in other people. I mean, and these are all little pearls of wisdom that were given to me, through the course of my career. And it's like, wow, if I hadn't had that, man, I probably could have ended up right down that road that my buddy Nelly did. You never know, right? So the value in, again, just caring for other people, right? So it's crazy, and I don't want to dive too far off onto that tangent, but a profession that is based around caring for others, safety-wise, whether it's a policeman, a fireman, a paramedic, a lifeguard, whatever, oftentimes they end up doing the worst job caring for each other within those ranks. So the people that really stand out in my mind that like I have the most respect for are the people that not only cared for their community and their public, but cared for their people, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah. There's a lot there. So we, as a community, we need to support the people that support us. And that's what organizations, there's more and more and more of them, but it's hard, right? Because there's a stoicism to it too, where a lot of people in the service, like, we don't talk about it. We don't share that we're having PTSD or the impacts of what we're dealing with. So I think it's getting much more airtime, right? More and more and more because the impacts are being seen in the numbers of people that are making that
Right.
Horrible choice.
And that's where, I mean, my mom, oh, wow, it's amazing that you took that career, blah, 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 or, somebody like that. And like, I just really respect what your choice is. And it's like, don't respect those guys for necessarily the danger. Yes, I mean, that's great that they're putting themselves in harm's way, but most of us enjoy that part of it. But for the toll that it takes on them, right, that's something to respect, right? The fact that they have to see all those people's worst days of their lives and potential the last day of those people's lives, like that's the part to respect about those professions, in my opinion.
Huge.
Again,
Absolutely.
not detracting from any of the other stuff, but yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Anyways.
No. But listen, it's the heavy part, but it's also probably the most important. And it's also, I think, probably pivotal because from that point, you're still doing it just in a different environment.
Sure.
And probably with a lot more fun. And there's high risk, but it's not all day, every day. Like you get to choose what you're doing, and hopefully there's none because you guys are so proactive on the front. Like you've gone from, I think, not putting words in, but you've gone from helping. You are a reactive force when you're doing that. You're getting called to go do things to fix problems or try to save people. Now you're trying to train people up front, again, foreshadowing where we're going, so they don't put themselves in that position.
Sure.
Right. And if they do, you're there.
Have a plan.
So let's jump into what happened. So you retire from the Harbor Patrol after 20 years. And again, thank you for your service. Did you have a plan? Were you already working on what was next? Like when did the crossover into stuff like you're doing today? How did that come about? Let's talk about the watercraft aspect, which is a big part of your life. Maybe where did that start? Because that's kind of dovetail into where you're going, right?
Yeah, so that was very mid-career for me. Growing up, even like high school, pre-high school, I always had like different hustles, lawn mowing, window washing people's houses. I always had more than one job at, even in high school. So during my career, one of the great pearls of wisdom I was given was a division chief with the fire department, a guy named Ken Matsumoto, said, hey, the best piece of advice I can give you is get involved in something outside of your primary job. Excuse me. And the reason for that was, kind of the draining, right? Like you're going to all these calls, it takes so much, you're having empathy and, trying to be there for people. The administrative side, right, that we kind of talked about, not necessarily everyone taking care of each other the way it should, that's going to drain you. If you get involved in something outside, that's going to fill your cup. So I kind of took what was already in me to have multiple things going at once. I kind of have fingers in a lot of pots. I'm one of those guys.
Is that called ADHD, John? I'm not sure.
I believe it might be. But so mid-career, I put in for a PWC class through Department of Boating and Waterways with the state of California. And we had PWCs as part of the Harbor Patrol at different times. Time I was putting in for it, we didn't have them. So the boss is like, no, we're not sending you that class. We don't have them. I said, well, I think it's important. We operate around a lot of them, so I would like a better working knowledge of all the craft that I'm around, sailboats, PWCs, what have you. So I'm going to take my days off, and I'm going to pay to go to the class. Well, if it's that important, we'll send you. So that was kind of my intro. That was probably, I don't know, 2012. Actually, it was before that because that was Greg's incident. So it was probably like 2010, 2009, somewhere in that range. Got hired out of that class to start teaching PWC to law enforcement, firefighters, lifeguards across the state.
That was fast. So you take a class and all of a sudden you're hired to go teach it?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those other weird things, right?
Okay.
No, and it was like, I talk a lot about visualization in our BRAG training classes, right? It's like, how can you be like prepared for something that like big waves? Do big waves happen every day? They don't happen every day. So what are the things that we can do the days that aren't big wave to prepare for those days, right? So with PWC, before I took the class, I was like, okay, it's a 12-foot jet-propelled boat. This is how I think it's going to operate. So in my head, visualizing I'm already operating the craft. I go to the class, 1 through 8 of the scenarios that I ran through worked correctly. Option number 9, I'm like, wait, why didn't that function well? Like, so then the learning curve is steeper that way, right? If you're visualizing in advance and kind of learning it ahead of time. So that's how I was able to do that, right? Wow. So got introduced to a whole, like, another network of people within that water community. And
hold on, is that a superpower of yours? Like,
what's that?
Just the ability to visualize. It sounds like that's a big thing these days for pro athletes to be taught visualization, and you see people really doing it. Even pro surf, you'll see them eyes closed, going through the motions.
Yep.
it doesn't sound like you were trained to do that. Has that just been something that you've adopted on your own or just have that natural tendency?
I think so. I mean, if you were to ask my parents what kind of a young boy I was, right? I was cautious. I was not outgoing. I was just this quiet, like, oh, you shouldn't do that. That's dangerous. I was that kid, which most people would say, how did you end up doing other stuff that doesn't look the same as that? But I think from that nature, I really wanted to understand it, right? Most of what we fear is just a lack of understanding of that environment or that skill or whatever it is. So I think for me, that my control, my ADHD, my control, all that is I really want to understand it and I want to be prepared for it, right? I want to know what's going to happen before it happens, right? Maybe it's a Boy Scout thing, be prepared, whatever it is, right? That was ingrained in me at an early age. And then, really played heavily into my career and how I approach risk or anything like that, right? So, I think I think the visualization is huge, right? Yeah, it is huge in pro sports, right? Like, how is your paddle going to enter the water? How are you going to approach a layup on the basketball court? Whatever it is. So having that, played into that. My ability to operate a PWC pretty quickly, like a quick learning curve. And then I think like anything in life, right? If a door is cracked open, maybe just sticking your head in and seeing what's inside there, and seeing what opportunities are there. You can always pull back, go somewhere else, but it opened a whole big, exciting world that I've had the pleasure of being a part of.
So they start having you start training other people, and then where does that go?
So then I got hired outside of that with the other instructors. Sean Eladio can be a controversial name in the industry, but had a private company, K38 Water Rescue. She did a lot of the military training, so I got involved with her, and that's how I got out to my first Cortez Bank mission. So she got hired by Garrett McNamara to run safety for a whole plethora of people that he was going out to surf with, and I got pulled in on the medical side of that team.
And as a surfer, you knew who Garrett was at that time?
Yeah. I mean, these are all like huge names that you're like.
But you hadn't, at that point, you had not done any work in big wave stuff at that point.
I'd never seen a wave over 20 feet in the face, probably. And that day was.
You've seen some bigger ones now, haven't you?
That was, again, one of those big, like critical, like pivotal moments in your life that you look back and you're like, wow, I changed a lot of things after that trip. There were a lot of aha moments.
For anybody that doesn't know, and I mentioned it earlier because HBO did the 100-foot wave on it, can you just share a quick overview of what Cortez Banks is?
So Southern California, the Channel Islands, everyone in this area pretty much familiar with like Catalina Island. It would basically be the next island in the chain to the south, beyond San Clemente. So big island, but completely submerged. So depending on tide, the highest point is like 6 or 8 feet underwater at Bishop's Rock. So you're 100 miles offshore, whether you leave from Santa Barbara or San Diego or Newport, everything's like in this 100 to 115 mile range.
Nothing around, nothing
above.
above.
Nothing around. So you're about 40 miles off the backside of San Clemente Island. And with the marine layer that we get all the time in Southern California, most of the time you cannot see land 360 degrees around you. But because this island is submerged there, when we get big waves coming from a storm, out of the northwest, it can break on that. So you can get these monster waves in what is apparently the middle of the ocean, which would be terrifying for mariners in the old days before we knew that existed, right? And so it has the potential, right, to go from super deep water to this submerged island. It has the potential to be one of the biggest waves in the world. The weather's pretty gnarly out there, so you only go when like the surface conditions are going to line up with that big swell. So it's not a common thing. Like there are seasons, whole winters that nobody goes out there. One, because of logistics and money and distance and all that. But two, because conditions aren't going to line up.
Yeah, so this is one of those places where the big wave world watches it.
Super misto, right? Yeah, everyone watches.
Super misto. But again, if you get the call up, which you did, so you get the call up because you're now being employed by this K38 Water Rescue and by Garrett McNamara, who is the guy with 100-foot wave. Tell the story.
Yeah, so I mean, meanwhile I'm working for Oceanside Harbor, right? So I'm being pulled in from the like public safety side, right? So like we need to work up some sort of action plan. And from the medical side, I'm an EMT at this point. Like I need to make sure I have a plan for how I can treat and stabilize potentially an injury out there, and what are the like most likely injuries, and how can we prep for that, and calling the Coast Guard, and my first trip, I didn't even know if the Coast Guard would fly that far. I mean, I was not a helicopter guy, so I didn't know, like, that's 100 miles offshore, 200-mile round trip. Like, are they going to do that, right? And so pre-gaming all that was really pretty overwhelming. Like, it was a lot, but exciting, right? Like, that's the industry that I'm in. Like, this is like one of the pinnacle aspects of that industry. So super exciting, but like also don't mess it up, Hoover. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and for clarity for anybody listening, what was their goal?
so they're going to go surf the biggest wave we can find, right? So, I mean, we get out there and conservatively, we end up with waves 60 foot in the face. I mean, some people might call it bigger, but yeah, massive waves, right? So triple the size of anything that I've ever seen ever in my life. And you're on a 10-hour boat ride overnight in the dark to go out there, which is normally a comfortable position for me, but going to something that I've never seen like that before, right? And anticipating that, like, I am within our safety team, I am the guy that they're relying on for any medical situation. And I'm thinking, it's not enough. It's not enough, but like they're relying on me, so I'm going to do the best that I can, right? So definitely a lot of emotions, right? Leading into it. And I always say that it's like when the dock lines come off the dock and you're making way for Cortez, like that's where my stress level goes down now. That trip wasn't the case. That trip was like full stress the whole time because it was just such a new world. It was just like, from my surfing background, it was like, wow, I'm going to get to see something that it'd be like going to the eddy and sitting in the channel, or, you know what I mean? It's just like so like outside of my realm. I was like, this is amazing. I'm going to be a part of that, but I can't think about that right now.
And it's the 0.00001 of surfability in the world, period.
Totally.
There's only
Totally.
a couple dozen people on the face of the earth that can ride this wave
Yeah, exactly. And
survive.
And again, like think about where you surf, like on the daily, right? You're lining up with the pink stucco house and like where the cluster of 3 palm trees. You can't see anything for 360 around you. There's huge currents. Obviously, we have a lot of current from the swell, but in general around that submerged island, there's all kinds of current. Knowing it as from a sailing background, knowing that area is like a pretty like sketchy, you're pretty far removed from any kind of help. There's usually big winds. It's a pretty wild place. There's lots of wonderful like sea stories like from the fishing side and lobsters pulling guys into holes and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's like there's all this like lore attached to it as well. And so then, yeah, now I'm going to like the highest risk environment that I've ever even imagined, feeling very exposed.
And you're it.
And you're it,
Wow.
right? So
Wow.
yeah, it was heavy. It was a lot to take in.
And in the surf world, most people know the story of what went on that trip.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to talk about one of your good friends, and we were just with him? How did you first meet Greg Long?
Yeah, so I'll skip right along the politics line of the
Yeah, we
lead up,
can
but
jump-
basically
yes.
Garrett and Greg took a wave together, and Greg is one of the most gracious humans in the world, so he doesn't put blame anywhere. But they both wipe out. Greg has a multiple wave hold down, ends up holding his breath basically to black out.
How big do you think the waves were?
Yeah, like I say, conservatively, I'd call it 60 foot in the
And
face.
he had a multiple wave hold down?
Yeah.
Never got a breath in between waves.
Yeah.
He just got rolled for, how long would you guess he was under? Any idea?
I mean,
I can't.
45 seconds or more before. I mean,
And this
half
is a guy
half
that
minute
in
to 45
still
seconds.
water could hold his breath for 5 minutes, but not.
Yeah, but think about jumping off the
Barrel.
side of a multi-story building, getting the wind knocked out of you, and then held down while your arms are getting ripped off your body from the force, right? For 30 seconds, 45
fathom.
seconds, whatever it is, right? So Garrett, being one of the guys that I was hired by, right, comes up, and DK Walsh had ended up jumping off his ski to grab Greg when they were able to finally see him. Because, leashes break, equipment breaks, like we may not recover his body if we don't grab him now. So DK did an amazing job, taking a couple more waves with Greg. And meanwhile, Garrett ends up I think on DK's ski, if I'm not remembering correctly, and buzzes back over and is like screaming, "We need the medic, we need the medic." And so I don't even know what I'm rolling into. So I start buzzing over
Was
to Greg's
Greg
boat.
part of your trip, or he was?
Yeah, so he
they were
was
on
he was separate. Yeah, he had his own program, and they had all kinds of gear and guys. I mean, they had a whole plan. Greg, anybody that knows Greg or even about Greg knows he's very calculated, very prepared. So he had his whole thing lined up.
And for context, Greg is also multiple-time big wave champion, incredible waterman.
Won the Eddy.
Yeah. So you're top of the top of the top.
Yeah. and raised by a very well-respected lifeguard here in Southern California, obviously retired. But so, yeah, I mean, he's coming from it with everything running in the right direction. But accidents happen, right? And like things happen. It was anticipated. He knew that could happen. So, yeah, so he basically gets recovered back over to his boat. I pull up as they're dragging him onto the swim step of this yacht. And he's unresponsive at this point. So I jump on board. And I think there was a lot of, again, we talk about in the classes, like if you're prepared to deal as a first responder with crazy incidents, right? I can separate it. If I've never met you before, it's patient A, patient B, patient C. Doesn't matter if you have bones sticking out of your body or whatever, right? Like I can deal with that. As soon as it's now Mark Schuline, who I'm friends with, it's going to be a little harder to deal with, right? As you're wrenching in pain from some traumatic injury, that's going to be more difficult. Make that my dad, make that my brother, make that my son. That's going to go even higher, right? And ultimately, the hardest one is if it's you that you're having to work on yourself in a traumatic injury. But so the guys on his team, they're as close as family, right? And so to see Greg, who's one of the most prepared, physically, apnea training, safety plans, all of it, is the one that's down. Shocking.
Rattled.
I mean, it just, I'm sure it wrecked them all the way to the core, right? And so they're doing their best. And then I was introduced into it, and there's a whole dynamic of that, right? Like kind of sizing the group up real quick. Is anybody like taking lead on this so that I can fall under them? I mean, we have incident command systems in our world, so they're kind of going. I mean, I'm not saying they're remiss, but I definitely saw like, okay, we need to move on this, right? And getting the backstory later makes a lot of sense, right? So we get him up on the deck of the boat, and I'm handing Ian Walsh a pair of shears to cut his wetsuit off, and I try to interject humor. The gallows humor that we talk about as first responders is, hey Ian, cut his wetsuit off, but don't cut his balls. And he kind of looked at me like I've never met Ian before,
Right.
and it's like, lighten up, guys. Let's work through the problem. Let's come up with a solution. Let's figure this out. And and so that's where I met Greg. Right, we didn't do CPR on him. He was able to regain consciousness on his own as we're transporting him up onto the deck of the boat. And just introducing himself as he rejoined the world. Hey, I'm John Hoover. I'm a EMT. I'm going to take care of you. This is what's going on. And so kind of the interview, I always say the interview I didn't know I was on. I was able to, perform in a pretty stressful situation, and we had a positive resolution. We flew him back on a Coast Guard helicopter to the mainland, and he's obviously alive and well today. So the combination of all his preparation and the team that he had in place, and, his preparation and holding his breath until blackout so that he wasn't, sucking a ton of water in. Pretty impressive.
Harrowing. Yeah, I mean, I guess it goes to show that anything can happen to anyone, and they go in, as you said, you went in prepared knowing. I guess the people that you work with in those environments, calculated risk, know the risk. With all the planning in the world, it's still risk. Let me ask you this before we go back into this. Is there like a before and after? Growing up surfing, as I did, when I was watching the guys surf the early eddies, maybe not the early, but they're surfing the eddies and pipe and Mavericks and stuff, and people were dying. Maybe not a lot, fortunately, but it was a more core badass type of outlook where like you went out there without a helmet, without flotation devices, without a rescue watercraft team, without the preparation. Today we'd say that's irresponsible, but back then that was just the way it was. And the better you could swim, the tougher you were, the better your chances of surviving tough situations. Today it's very different. You just kind of really describe what it looks like now, especially to push the limits they are to such a degree. I think you were here in the middle of this kind of evolution, right? What was was there a defining moment or a defining period of time where it shifted from core self-sufficient to fully supported, like John Hoover and BWRAG is here for a reason? What was the evolution of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was very much people that had a lot of natural athletic ability and were just willing to be punished and, be able to survive that kind of stuff. I always say it's like it was the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and it turned into the quinoa and yoga and like all that. So, Yeah, I mean, it was, it was Mark Fu. It was, all these guys that, were like, we thought that nothing could happen to them, right? And they're drowning, and we're like, oh, okay, that's wild, right? And Scion was, for BWRAG, that was the nexus for us. In 2011, Scion drowns, right? And then 2012, Greg Long drowns, and so in 2011 is when Cole Christensen.
But Greg came back and Scion did.
Yeah.
Right.
But, so that's when Cole and Danilo, those are the founding members of BWRAG.
Cole Christensen, Danilo.
Couto. Yeah, Brazilian guy. And so they were close with Scion. So as they're seeing some of these other guys, but then Scion's death, I think, is what really memorialized it for them, because they were close with him. They're like, we got to do something different. But I think as a surf culture, I think we were all jarred. We were all pretty shocked. Like, wait, people are we pushing it too far? Like, should that be out of bounds? Like, should that not be something we're doing? Or, and you're never gonna put it out of bounds. So, so then what, everyone was, I think, just kind of searching around a little bit. Right. And so, yeah, Cole and Danilo, they're like, how do we do this better? How can we be safer? And, they reach out to Uncle Brian Keolana, obviously legendary lifeguard in his own right, but, generationally, Uncle Buff above him, right? So they ask him, like, he's the safest, smartest, most capable person that they know. Hey, would you help us, right? And his whole thing, we share it every time, is his one condition was, yeah, if I help you, you have to promise that you will help others, you will pay it forward, that you will share whatever I'm sharing with you, right? And so that was it, right? In 2011, they kind of, like a very elite, invite-only kind of group, started doing some training. Pam Foster came in from a medical side to really help with that. And it was just meeting in Cole's Barn. I mean, if you watch the Patagonia made a short on that, it's on YouTube. They kind of explain that history of it, but they are just meeting at Cole's place and like, how can we better be prepared for myself and maybe my close friends, right? And then that grew. Greg was a part of that initial group, in the early years of it. And, it was just very like, hey, we're going to get this safety thing together and we're just going to, figure out how we can do it better. And then he ended up drowning, successfully coming back. So I think the fire was lit there, was between those two big incidents, like this needs to be a real thing.
Yeah. And so thank you for sharing that. So what happens? So Greg comes back, you guys were introduced under the heaviest of conditions. This is 2012. So this is just a year or so after you first started in the rescue watercraft world, right?
Yeah.
Or so?
A couple of years. Very fresh.
It's your first big wave surf trip. Like,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I was training for 2 Foot Oceanside and ended up at Cortez Bank. So it was wild, and yeah, to meet Greg in that circumstance, I was put in a bit of a pickle with that too, because we're motoring towards shore to take care of Greg. Meanwhile, I have a team that I'm responsible to that's still on the bank.
Oh, so you left your Garrett team and went with the Greg team.
Right. So I'm treating my patient, right? And we're making way towards shore, and they're planning to surf the next day. So not even just the rest of that day, which we were later in the day already, but the next day. So if I go all the way to shore with Greg, they've got nobody. And so had to kind of make a decision at that point. Guys like Frank Chiarte from Mavericks, like there were solid guys on the boat. So I kind of just coached them what to expect. And once the helicopter is confirmed en route, they're coming to get Greg, I felt confident enough there to say I can barely see the navigation lights on my boat on the horizon. I mean, I'm about to lose visual out there. And I've got one of my team members following on a jet ski off the back of Greg's boat. And it's getting dark, right? And I'm like, okay, you guys are ready. Good luck. Take care. This is how it's going to go with the Coast Guard. And hopped on a ski and in the pitch black, following that little red light on the side of the boat until we got back to Cortez Bank, like 20 miles back, and had a whole nother day. So, it was wild. I thought that was the end of it. Like, I met Greg Long. I guess that's cool. Like, but him being the human that he is, after everything, looked everybody up. Looked myself up. Who was it that helped? He found out who the Coast Guard air crew was that came out to help. Invited all of us to the Circus of the XXL Awards. and obviously recognize those guys on the helicopter and everybody. So yeah, that was the beginning of our friendship.
That is an introduction to introduction to him, introduction to the big wave world.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, everything about it. Like, you went out there, like you said, like, I was nervous because I'd never done it before. Now I'm out there. Now I'm on Greg's boat. Am I going in? Am I going back? We're going to the, like, dude, it's a heavy story from you, not just
Sure.
from everybody. I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I just
it
always
was probably super fun for you after you're like, oh, we're going to jet ski back and then we're on for tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. You're still kind of just processing, right? Trying to figure that out. But even to this right now, telling you the story, years later, it's like I still look at, like, you take a bad injury on a professional football field. Is that guy going back and, like, personally thanking the EMT that ran out on the field for him? Maybe, maybe not. I wouldn't expect it, and definitely didn't expect it with that. And again, there was that door cracked open, and because of Greg coming back and introducing himself and saying thanks, it led to all kinds of other wild adventures.
Like
afterwards.
what? Like what came from that introduction and then Greg reaching out to you thereafter?
Yeah, it just opened the whole world of, like, big water safety for me, right? So, one of my big takeaways was that I definitely wasn't prepared for that environment. I wasn't prepared to survive what took Greg long down, right? And I had a little jet ski mishap earlier in that day that fortunately I didn't get smashed, but I could have very well been smashed by, 60-foot waves on my dead jet ski. So that opened to, like, okay, I need to start swimming bigger water. That was my nexus to starting to spend more time in Hawaii and body surfing on the North Shore and meeting people like Fred David, who's now married to Justine DuPont, and right, like, this funny, like, community, how this thing whole works. So it opened up that side of it, but it opened up, doing water safety and, like, bigger high risk events. I've traveled with Greg just about any time the hair kind of stands up on the back of his neck and it's, like, just that much extra risk and he's going to put a team together. I've been fortunate to travel and do that with Greg and the Walshes and, a couple of different people that I really have a lot of respect for in the water. And then ultimately this whole thing called BRAG. So, it's funny, it's just like one little thing and all of a sudden, like, that formulates a big direction of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
well, let's keep going. Let's talk about BRAG.
So, hired by Garrett, Danilo Couto was on the boat. Danilo is one of the founding members of BRAG. Obviously, we saw that interview I didn't know was on. Danilo comes out of that first Cortez mission saying, hey, we have this group. We're trying to take things seriously, blah, blah, blah. You got to come to Hawaii and train with us. And at that point, it was like a once a year, just before the season, get together, right? Very informal. So, okay, yeah, I'm interested. Like, I'd love to meet and learn and see what, Uncle Brian's involved. Like,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to learn from the best of the best in the game. Yeah. And Greg's coming at it from the other angle. So between Danilo and Greg, they're both saying, hey, come, be a part of this. Other people as well, And so, yeah, in the early days, I was coming in and getting to sit in a class and listen to Brian Keolana, like, explain risk and how he views it. And he has this really cool, like, just amazing viewpoint on how he views the ocean being raised over there.
He has more rad quotes about the ocean and, and there's been a lot on social media. It's like getting all this airtime, all these quotes from Brian. And just because he brought him up, because he's such an incredible human and legend. When I had Kalani Vieira in, he talked about the Together for Life, Connected by Water quote that they use for the Hawaii Lifeguard Association. He's like, I reached out to Brian. Yeah. That was one of Brian's quotes. I just wanted to borrow it. So just what a cool opportunity to go spend time with so many of those top of the top guys.
Right. Yeah. And it was great because they're bringing in, they were bringing in people that do surf and aquatic forecasting for Navy SEAL teams. And they're bringing in people at the top of the medical field. And obviously Uncle Brian and others, Uncle Terry Hui and, North Shore Lifeguard Association, like guys like that all coming in to teach what they, bringing what they had to offer to the table, right? And that really has continued to be the heart of BRAG is everyone's just bringing their experience. Like, this has worked for me. This was successful for me. And it's an offering of, like, take it or leave it. Go learn the hard way if you want. But if you want an option to, like, learn from my mistakes or learn from something that I had to do the hard way, here it is. Please learn from it and go and be as good or better than me, right? So the heart of the people that are involved in it, like that's something that I definitely wanted to surround myself with, right? Uncle Brian, if you've spent any time with the guy, is the most humble, has done everything, right? Has every right to walk around and be egotistical and be the man, is polar opposite, obviously, right? Like just the most humble, amazing man. And I was sailing off the west side of Oahu one time, called him up, hey, I don't know if you're around, I'd love to see you. I get dropped off this 100+ foot, carbon fiber sailing catamaran off Makaha. So of course all the boys are like, who's this Howley guy
Right,
coming
right.
in on this carbon fiber tender, jumping off and swimming through the shore break? Definitely not making any friends with that entry. And Uncle Brian walks down from the lifeguard tower and gives me a big hug at the waterline. And like that guy, right? He could have easily sat up there. He could have easily ignored my phone call, right? But he's that guy, right? And so I've been so fortunate that these different groups, I've been able to surround myself with people that are just at the utmost, like the highest level, performance-wise, but humility and character and like who they are, just the best on the planet.
It's rad. Well, and I think anybody that knows you would say the same thing, that, I mean, you're in that company for a reason. So
I'm just stoked to be here.
hallelujah, right? But you earn your way in. Same thing we said about like those guys that kind of took you under their wing when you started on the port.
Yeah.
There was a reason you were getting, that door was cracked open and then it was pushed open for you for a reason. So it's super cool. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we'll get to it some more, like the different personalities and characters of people that make up any organization is what gives it its culture. But like just my time, which isn't a lot, but spending time both taking the course with BWRAG or BRAG and spending time with you over these 2 years of working on the Bended Go, like it's super freaking cool. It's been really fun, but I can't tell you what it means to have you guys in our court. Like the level of comfort and confidence we have, like we've been blessed with good conditions. I know that we go into the event very different than how you guys go into the event. We go in, we're trying to get everybody across safely. You're going in thinking every possible thing that can go wrong and you're ready for it. Within reason.
Give
right?
yourself some credit, Mark. You think a little bit like me. You're in my paranoia club a little bit.
Well, the funny thing is I'm super paranoid when it comes out. The funny thing is like I said, other than my experience 1 year as a cadet when I was, 15 years old, I've never been a lifeguard first responder or anything, but I've spent all my time doing races, doing events, and I was a dive instructor. I mean, I look out for people naturally, but I'm organized. I couldn't do the work that needs to be done, but I can organize and plan for it, and that's why we called you guys. I want to have the best in our court. We're a water safety organization. We have to make sure that we're safe in the water. So we're very safe in the water now, which is great.
Yeah, you are.
So going back to BRAG, what's the mission of BRAG?
So it's really, it's kind of a couple aspects. I think the first and foremost, Eli Olson was one of our students over the years.
World-class surfer, big wave.
North Shore of Oahu. And if you look up North Shore Rescue, you're probably going to see him as a surfer side by side with lifeguards on multiple rescues. We recognized him one year at a course, and the way he phrased it was, he was like, it was really just about awareness, right? And I've said that already today, but being aware of other people outside of yourself as a surfer, right? So bringing awareness to what's happening to other people, what could happen to other people, having some sort of a game plan, in advance for that. So the awareness, and then I think just equipping people, anybody that's taken any kind of CPR, first aid class in a very sterile kind of clinical setting, you come away from it with probably a notepad worth of notes on like how to do something, right? But if you've done a DIY project at your house, you probably have to like click back on the YouTube video multiple times to accomplish the project, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, I watched the video, or oh, I took the class and I'm ready to do that skill. You're not, right? We're still learning that. So I think for us, we're really trying to equip people in a way that they don't need the notes, in a way that they don't have to hit that, like jump back 10 seconds and watch that part over again. We want to make it so simple and like logical and practical that in that moment they feel confident to execute, right? Because so much of what I dealt with as a first responder, I say it all the time, is every rescue that I went to, there was somebody else around, whether it was an aquatic rescue, whether it was a car accident, whatever it is, there's somebody else around. Are they equipped and prepared to help? Are they willing to help? Are they aware enough to do something about it? Not always the case. But if we can increase that awareness from the general public and we can equip them to take some of those initial steps, that is often the critical skill, right? So you have an emergency, whether it's aquatic or, again, like say it's a car accident out here. There may be a case where unless there's a bystander intervention, you'll never even see the paramedic, right? And unless that paramedic does their job, you're never even going to see the emergency room. And unless they do their job, you're never even going to see a surgeon, right? So it's like do not pass go, right? Like, so you have to have all those steps in place. And one of the most critical ones, in my opinion, the most critical one is if you're not that bystander willing to intervene, willing to do something, they may not make it to that next step. Yeah. So how do we equip people to do that?
Yeah, got it. Rad. It's interesting also, not to keep throwing these guys up there, but it's some of my closest experiences spending time with the Kauai Lifeguards and Kalani and those guys. They've been very kind to give me a lot of gear over the years. Yeah. We spend a lot of time. We like to fundraise for them. But it's all like Hawaii Lifeguard Association or Kauai Lifeguard Association shirts. And I'm like, I'm not a lifeguard. And they're like, he goes, have you ever made a rescue? I'm like, of course. He's like, would you make a rescue right now? Yes. He's like, then wear the shirt. I'm like, okay, I'll wear. But truly, like, they looked at it the same way. Like, if you're a capable bystander, if you're aware and you're willing to do the work, or you do the work when you're out there, then you are helping.
Right.
And so I wear the shirt.
Yeah, good. You should. Yeah, and it's and it's interesting. I mean, we get into it in the training quite a bit too. Is part of that awareness is being honest with yourself and knowing where you fit into that like successful puzzle, right? So, would you make a rescue? Like a guy that's fit, capable, experienced, has some training? Yeah, go and make that rescue. But if you're the tourist from Middle America that's aware enough to see it, but maybe not, fit, experienced, capable, have the knowledge of the water, we don't want that secondary victim, right? So like giving that awareness too, and like finding like where are our limits, right? And in the public safety world, we train in controlled environments, or that's our goal, right? To minimize the risk, but to also expose you to some of the experience that you need before you get there. So we do try to like show in the training is like, maybe jumping in and doing the rescue isn't the answer. Maybe it is, depending on your situation, but if it's not, what are the other things that you could do? Could you have done the preventative action, right? The lifeguards peeing from the tower, hey, don't go out because of the conditions, whatever. Or, maybe you're the person that's going to call 911. Maybe you're the one that's going to meet the ambulance and show them the fastest way to get down to the victim, whatever, right? There's all these different positions on the team, right? And so trying to, again, increase that awareness, right? If you never think through it, if you never visualize it, if you never are exposed to it because you don't do that for a living and deal with that day in and day out, most people don't know it. So we're really just trying to like open the doors, open the playbook, like, hey, here's some experience, here's some insight, and how can you do better? And like, let's equip you to do that.
Rad. And for clarity, and this was, well, I guess, let me go back to it. For clarity, big wave risk assessment group. Are you only catering to people that spend their lives in big waves, or is this for, I'm kind of leading the question. I think I know the answer.
You're doing a good job.
But walk anybody that isn't familiar or isn't a big wave person, but they spend time on the beach anywhere, or they just want to become more familiar or aware, or they want to be able to help out more, using your example. Who is the target audience of what you guys provide at BWRAG?
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely started, right? Historically, it started in the big wave, right? It was all big wave surfers bringing in experts from different fields to try to equip them and better prepare them. And then over the years, more and more people hear about it. Hey, I'd like to be involved. Maybe they're not an elite big wave surfer, but they are involved some way, right? So that group kind of started to expand. And then now fast forward to today, over the last number of years, we've realized like these are the critical skills that anybody that goes to the water of any sort like should have, right? So the soccer mom with a van full of wave storms and a bunch of frothing 9, 10, 11-year-old kids, yeah, you should know how to do that, right? Because do they, I know you had Drosco on here, and then off season and never off duty and all that kind of stuff, right? So you may be at a beach that doesn't have a lifeguard at that moment, right? And so should that mom know how to do it? Really, should that kid know how to do something, right? Their friend gets in trouble in the water and leash snaps and they're getting sucked out of rip current and just getting pounded, and they took a bad fall, so they're already, at a loss there. Should that 9-year-old kid be able to do something? Yeah, they should have at least some basic skills similar to what our wonderful junior lifeguard programs in Southern California do, right? Is equipping people that are already out there to do something, right? And not become another victim, of course, right? So yeah, we're trying to equip everyone. So now we get people from the kiting and, wing and foiling, and we get people that are into like canoe racing and offshore kayaking and all kinds of stuff. So anyone really aquatic, you should have the skill. It's kind of like the wilderness medicine stuff that you see in the, the backcountry stuff, just applied to the ocean. So that's kind of what we're offering.
Got it. So to further define it, although it's called the Big Wave Risk Assessment Group, it is any of those people, anybody that uses the water, a mom, a kid, anybody can take the course.
Anyone. You may be just bought a wave storm, 2 months in surfing, sitting next to Nathan Florence, sitting next to Kalani Vieira. The people that are in these courses, the spectrum is huge. You have people with 20, 30 plus years of professional experience sitting next to somebody who's barely seen the ocean, just moved here from Idaho. But it's applicable to everyone, and they find a way to work together through that 2-day course. And amazingly enough, like, everyone's benefiting from everyone else's experience. Oh, maybe they didn't have ocean experience, but they had river experience. And this one time, my friend got stuck in this thing, right? And that plays into it, right? Because there's so much overlap, right? Cross-training is so valuable to anything that we do. Those courses, again, it's kind of that meeting place where we're just all offering the experience that we have. And as instructors, we say it every time as well, is we're learning from you guys. Like, we went to Outer Banks like a month ago. We're in North Carolina. I've never surfed in the Outer Banks. A lot of the questions were kite-related questions. And I'm like, man, cool. What an opportunity for my brain to expand into that world and to like glean wisdom from these guys. Something that maybe I'll never use, maybe I will use, who knows? But it's just cool. It's like a big melting pot of aquatic experience.
Got it. A lot of it's water, but a lot of it's not. When you're doing a lot of the wound care and you're doing a lot of the things that you guys talk about and teach on applies to everybody anywhere. Right?
Yeah. One of our students was in Times Square, New York, shortly after our class, and had to jump in and do CPR on a guy, on the sidewalk there, right? So I say, join my paranoia. That's always my little thing in the class, is like, be aware of what's happening around you in the grocery store, be aware of what's happening in the airport, whatever, in Times Square, what have you. I don't have the off switch all the way, right? I try to turn as much of it off as I can to be a good human and be around people and be normal, whatever that is.
You do a pretty good job of it.
But that other part is always running, right? That's always, refreshing and running in the background. There's all that going on. Oh, okay, if that car crashed right outside of this studio, how am I going to respond to that, right? So
yeah. And if somebody wanted to take it, you're doing these all the time. You're here right now for like another month because you're doing courses, but it's not just California. Like, you're doing twice a month somewhere, I think. Talk about where some
we're doing, so for the rest of the time that I'm here, we're doing, we're going to do Hermosa Beach. We're doing an advanced lifeguard class this week in Oceanside. We're going to be teaching up in Santa Cruz, Half Moon Bay. Boys are taking off to go to Portugal shortly after that. We have a class in Puerto Rico. So yeah, the schedule's pretty like high paced. Like, we're doing a lot. It's all on the website, brag.com, BWRAG.com. And if you are in an area that like is not on there and you think you can rally people to get enough people involved to do a course there, and we just taught a class in Tofino, up in British Columbia, and growing up, that would have been a pretty obscure place. Apparently it's like a mini Huntington Beach now. It's like surf schools everywhere. I had no idea.
I know.
But we go anywhere that we're invited. We don't go into communities that aren't asking us to be there. That kind of comes back from the roots, in Hawaii, just very important to be respectful and be invited. But yeah, if you're able to generate enough interest, enough people that would be willing to take their
How many
time
people
and
do you
energy.
need for a class?
Yeah, generally if we can get like 25, 30 people, that's kind of our like middle of the road. We've had classes 60 people. We taught a class in Puerto Escondido with 130 people this last year. So we do bigger classes. But yeah, if we have at least 25, 30 people, that we can generally make that work. But a lot of it's help, Ben Carlson Foundation obviously is helping partner with us to take this to places that maybe don't have the means or, whatever to make that happen. So we're expanding pretty rapidly, but trying to like keep the content really consistent and really have the outreach be impactful, right? Not like just another like, offering, right? We want this to be real, and we want it to be something that is lasting and makes a difference. Puerto Rico is a really great example. Otto Flores, Greg Carson, a bunch of the guys out there. Years ago, we go there every other year now. Years ago, we went out there and they very much had an idea that they were missing a lot of the pieces of the game, but eyes opened all the way. They're like, man, we really need to come up with our own plan. We won't get into the politics of it, but there's not a lot of options. You're pretty self-sustaining if you're surfing in Puerto Rico. And they put a plan together, a community-based plan, and every other year when we come back, we see that plan growing. So it's really pretty cool to see that. And now they're doing like volunteer lifeguard programs, and they're getting AEDs mounted on the walls outside of some of the surf spots, and
it becomes part of the flywheel, right?
Yeah, so they're taking ownership and responsibility for it is a pretty special thing for us on our end, and so those are the kind of partnerships that we're looking for, is people that really can be already tied into that community, but then are going to invest into moving that forward, not just like, oh yeah, remember that time 15 years ago I took that class. No, we want to have people join that community.
Rad. And listen, the final thing I'll just say, my going through it this time last year, it's for anybody. Like my wife would, it's not daunting. You guys do such a really good job. It's educational, it's cool, it's fun, you meet great people, but it's not, I don't want anybody to think it's only for like elite surf. It's not. It is total community focused. It's so well done. Like just big kudos. It really has been scaled. But it's hands-on. But it, like you come away way more confident. And we had kids in there. We had a friend of mine that I grew up with. His son came down from Santa Barbara specifically to do it. Like there were people from all over, but it was so well done. And like I think you guys make everybody feel comfortable. Nobody feels out of place. Like just nail it. Like really, really professionally done.
Thanks. Yeah, to that note, I mean, we literally just had a class in San Clemente, and Greg Long's mom took the class.
Oh, is that right?
Right. She's surrounded by a pretty accomplished lifeguard, a very accomplished surfer, and she's doing wound packing with me and doing CPR with me. And it was actually like bringing your parents to work day. Kaipo's dad came, my mom came. It was pretty wild. But yeah, it's accessible to anyone. And we get Groms coming out of it, 10, 12-year-old Groms coming out of it and telling us success stories like 3 weeks after the class, how they jumped in and did something when adults are standing there, doing nothing, or people are whipping out their phones.
We've heard that about junior guards.
Same.
And first year lifeguards, they go through training and they're automatic. They're using it right out of the gate, which is really incredible.
Fully.
I want to just comment on it because after getting a chance for the second year to spend time with your group, both on the water but also off, I've got to say, like, the difference of personalities between everybody, and we won't go into names, but like just so cool, so fun, like watching you guys when you're off. I know you're always on, but you're off, and it's just the banter and the fun, and then see you guys in a different mode, still super cool. And like I can just tell, like when we're on the water, you guys are working, but you're always watching. But it was like, it's just really fun to sit back and watch how something works, knowing how you are here. But if something goes on, how things change immediately, and how prepared and just dialed and ready. So what a great group you guys have assembled, and your role now on the board. I mean, you're on the board of directors with Greg Long, with Brian Keelana, and you have one other, and Cole Christensen.
Yep.
Like, well done, dude. You're in good company. It's really, really amazing.
It's an honor.
Kudos. And all the people that I've worked with from BRAG are rad. Super, super neat. Back to Hoover. Your family's here. You've got 3 young kids. You live on the Big Island.
Yeah.
What took you, when did that switch to go from Oceanside to the Big Island?
So I touched on, starting to spend more time in Hawaii, swimming bigger water, all that kind of stuff. So obviously I got bit. I had the bug, wanted to move over to Hawaii where I could. It was in my career, so not going to sacrifice that unless I found the next most amazing option, right? Once you have a dream job, which I would equate my job in Oceanside as a dream job, it's hard to have any other job ever again. So unless you find another dream job that's going to lure me over there, I knew I was.
Did you find it?
Not yet. I'm working on it.
Gotcha.
I'm working on it. So I knew I was going to finish out my career in Oceanside. Met my wife in Kona. She's born and raised in Kona. Grew up in Captain Cook. Met her on a trip over there, and things progressed pretty rapidly. She agreed to marry me and move to California. So She came over for 5 years, but she owned a house next door to the house she grew up in where her parents live. And so I kind of like, well, I guess we're probably going to end up in Kona unless I find a giant bag of money somewhere to buy a house on the North Shore of Oahu. Probably not going to happen. We considered Maui for a minute. And then, when retirement hit, it was like, man, we're headed there. And over the years now, I mean, she was in California for 5 years. We've been back almost 3 years full-time over there. I've really learned to love Kona, fallen in love with it. We live kind of in an ag zone. It's all, coffee fields and mac nut orchards, and the surf goes really flat for a long time, but my wife's amazing, so I get to travel, and if I can, if I want to pop over to Oahu or Maui for a swell, I'm allowed to do that. And then traveling with BWRAG and everything, we get waves here and there too. So, so we're over there. I got 3 little kids. My oldest will be 6 next month. I got a boy and 2 girls, a 4 and a 2-year-old daughter. And
I think you told me that your 2-year-old has your number.
The 2-year-old it'll be interesting to see who she grows into being. But it's neat, I think anyone that's a parent or even, a close uncle or auntie, you see them explore and discover, and all of a sudden that 1 to 2 foot day is like way more exciting than anything else. So I'm elbows deep in the midst of that right now, where just bought a board from Stewart. Like, it's a real surfboard with a little foam wrap on the top to go tandem surf with my kids.
Fun.
That's the most exciting thing in the world to me right now. And they're all, rock jumping and, holding their breath and swimming under the water and doing everything that they can. So, it's a lot of fun. It's a wild ride, but we're living there full time in Kona, and I'm loving that Hawaii warm water. I got rid of most of my wetsuits except to travel to teach. And enjoying being back here in Southern California and seeing friends and family.
Rad. Hoover, you're the man. I'm so grateful that you came and took some time and tell the story. And thanks for, again, connecting all the dots and how you started here and everything you've done. And it's been, again, with all seriousness, it's been rad to be able to watch and be a part of what you guys do. On the beneficiary side, having you guys on our court just this weekend was pretty magic yet again. So thank you for being there. You mentioned if people want to find BWRAG, it's just brag.com.
Yep.
I'm not going to give it out unless you want to. Your personal Instagram handle is pretty funny.
The dangerous cheese.
Queso peligroso?
That's the one.
Is there a reason? Where did that come from? I don't know if we have enough time. I would like... There's got to be a story.
I love cheese, man. I'd probably be like an underwear model if I didn't eat cheese. That's where that came from. But
okay, fair.
Yeah, be forewarned though. If you jump on there and follow me, you're probably going to get a lot of flowers and fruit tree grafting and other nerdy stuff that I'm into. But yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do if you live in ag land.
Yeah, exactly.
In Hawaii.
Yeah.
Rad. Dude, thank you so much. So proud of you. I appreciate everything you and all of your world are doing for the rest of us in or out of the water.
Well, I just wrap up with one thing if I can.
Yeah.
We have a lot of conversations with guys and gals that hey, I was always interested in being a lifeguard, but I never did or whatever, right? A lot of people considering it, and I point to guys like Tim Burnham and Spencer Purdy who, at this stage of their life are like, no, lifeguarding is really important, and either doing it for the first time or coming back to it. I would just really encourage everybody to be aware of the people around you, but if you find an avenue to serve, whether it be lifeguarding, whether it be volunteering for events like the Bend and Go or, open water, or any of those things, taking that opportunity to serve in other areas, it's so rewarding, and it gives you an opportunity really to better yourself in the midst of it. So I would just leave it at that, as my career and my experiences have all been doors cracked open, seeing what's inside, and having the work ethic to back it, but also the willingness and the curiosity to go after it. So I would just encourage anybody that's kind of teetering on any of that, if they're actually listening to this, I would say do it. Jump in there and find some people to help and serve.
Rad. Perfect way to close it. Thank you, brother.
Cool, bro.